Welcome back to another episode of The Only Playbook, guys. First episode of the year 2022, episode 34. We're recapping week 17. Fantasy football playoffs in most leagues have officially ended. Some people still have some useless games next week, like myself. But one more week in the NFL. Fantasy football is wrapped up. A lot to unpack here. I'm Sweetcar, got Shashot, Shovit. How are you guys doing? Welcome to 2022.
Yeah, it feels good, man. It's kind of bittersweet because of fantasy's done, at least for me. And one more week, and we're done with the NFL as far as regular season goes. So
I feel like it's less bitter than more sweet.
More sweet?
I mean, like, you have your life back, you know? Like, especially when you end with, like, 2 L's in the finals.
Oh, yeah.
Then it's like, let me just look forward to, like, life outside of football for a little bit, and then we can reinvestigate football.
You know, that's going to last you, like, maybe 2 weeks after February 12th, whatever that Super Bowl date is, and then you're going to be like, I want football back.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But yesterday, like, I mean, it's
still fresh in your brain, right? Yeah. The heartache and all the grinding and the gritting of all season to get where you're at, all the moves you had to make, all the 4 a.m. waivers, all the let me drop this guy or pick this guy, all of that, and it all ends in the blink of an eye in 1 week. Yeah,
it does. And we don't even have second place trophies. Nope. I thought we did. I could have sworn I've been giving half of my money when I win to other people.
I don't if you're not first, you're last.
I don't remember ever Venmoing anybody second place money, to be honest.
I guess I probably did that when I was commissioned back in the day.
But yeah, so a lot to unpack. Thank you guys for joining us. If you guys enjoy our content, social media, we're all out there. All the podcast platforms, Apple, Google, Anchor, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe, like. It helps spread the word. And our social media platforms at Twitter, at Only Playbook, Instagram at The Only Playbook, and TikTok at The Only Playbook. So we're expecting a jam-packed off-season of football, playoff football. We're not going anywhere. And a lot of exciting things on the horizon. So stay tuned and turn those notifications on. Week 17 is over. Dr. Oja, what do we have for injuries this week?
Okay, this week is hard because, like, all the major fantasy football networks have shut down. Like, ESPN is done for the year, and, like, CBS is done for the year. So the areas where the news typically comes from has been, like, narrowed down to, like, a couple of places. So a lot of the MRI reports aren't back on a lot of people yet, and I think it's just we're gonna have to do heavy Twittering this week to get all the information out. But first things first, Ronald Jones, somebody that a lot of people expected to carry them to the promised land, got an ankle injury, and he doesn't have his MRI report done yet. So as of now, Keyshawn Vaughn is the starter, but he's also dealing with bruised ribs. And you know, on a high-powered offense, and in the last week of the season, whoever is going to be starting is probably going to be relevant, unless his name is Le'Veon Bell, which is looking like the only healthy running back on that roster right now. There's some hope that Gio might be able to return this upcoming week, but outside of that, the only person here is Le'Veon Bell that's healthy at this moment. So,
is he the only former Steeler on the team now?
How many former Steelers were there?
Antonio Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Yes.
Probably.
The answer is
probably.
Yes. Yeah. And then Mike Glennon's got a wrist injury. Not like that really matters, but they're going from mode next week. They've openly
full on tanking.
Full on from mode. But it's smart. They've openly said that, like, we want to see what the rest of the roster can do. Remember what I said about Joe Flacco?
Yep. That's
what's happening right now. But the Jets were doing that like week 6.
I was literally thinking that on the way here. That is the best way to tank.
Yeah.
Start your young. We got to see what the rest of the guys have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We got to see what Mannion has. We got to see what Mond has.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's see, like, some of these other guys, like, get more Nwangwu reps, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's what tomorrow or next week is for. Jordan Howard is on the COVID list now. So that means it's, again, Boston Scott time. I don't know about his I don't know about Howard's vaccine stage or whatever.
Or the Eagles having clinched a playoff spot, like how they're going to utilize their running backs.
Right. So I expect they're still expecting Miles Sanders to come back for the playoffs with a broken hand.
Which he broke, what, a week ago?
A week ago.
Yeah, very recently.
Yeah, so he was just not – he didn't play this game. But, yes.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't understand how they're going to do that. I would not advise that, especially with somebody so fragile like
Miles Sanders.
But anyways, so Boston Scott, who's also on the COVID list – so they're both on the COVID list, basically. We're just going to have to see which one gets out of it, and you're probably going to be starting that one. Again, it's week 18, so we have no idea what the fuck's going to happen.
Exactly.
So this could be like a game.
TBD on like everything till Saturday.
But I'm just going to give you the information.
Yep.
You're going to have to decide until Saturday what to do.
Yep.
Dallas Goedert was also placed on the COVID list.
He had a funny play. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Where he fell on the sideline in slow-mo and then he got it.
Yeah. Classic Goddard stuff. And then Michael Gallup, he tore his ACL. It's a clean tear, so those heal pretty easily. Nothing else ripped, just the ACL. So it's going to be back like nothing ever happened. It's just going to suck for him to recover through that. Damian Harris, he ran for 2 touchdowns, right? Mm-hmm. But he didn't play the whole second half, and everybody was like, "What's going on? Why isn't he playing?"
Stevenson got the third
Probably
touchdown.
Yeah, the Jags.
Yes. So I assume they were up by a lot.
Yeah.
But there was an injury concern here. I think I got a notification saying it was a hamstring injury, but I think that's what he had before, and I think a lot of people were just speculating that that's what it was. But I think they just pulled him out for no reason, just because it's the Jags.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep your eye on that just in case it is the hamstring. So there's some other players that don't really matter, like Michael Pruitt. Unfortunately, he had a really bad injury. Ricky Seals-Jones also had a pretty bad injury. Neck. He got ruled out immediately. So if you're trying to find fill-in players, these are good players to find their backups for. Only because there's not many good tight ends out there, and Dolphins like to use their tight end. Maybe not as of recently that often, but that's been like their bread and butter before the whole Parker rise. And the Ricky Seals-Jones backup, they have one of the highest utilizations of routes run by tight ends. So whoever his backup ends up being, if you're desperate, you can start that guy, whoever that is. And yeah, we're gonna run through this really quickly. Jared Goff is having a knee. He had a knee issue, which caused him to not play last week. He's probably they're probably gonna just keep trying to use these backups.
I was just gonna say they're probably just gonna keep extending that knee through Sunday and just not playing.
Yeah, that would be smart. Alex Collins got an abdominal issue, but nobody cares because Rashard Penny has taken over that job. I feel bad for you, Alex Collins. But it's Penny's job now. You're going to have to find work somewhere else.
Finally healthy for like the first time in his career, and Penny looks fucking good.
He looks really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like 3 out of 4 games with like insane numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mark Ingram is inactive, or he was inactive this game. And I don't know what's going to happen with him. But yeah, the injury report's really lackluster this week because no one's given any information out. I think the fantasy football community as a whole has kind of just, they expect people not to be playing on week 18. So the typical places where we get the news from, they're not doing too hot on a Monday afternoon right now.
Yeah. Stay tuned at Only Playbook on Twitter. We'll try to update you throughout the week as we can. Obviously, there's going to be probably a lot of just like not playing just for rest, right? Already playoffs clinched and all that stuff. So unless you're playing for seeding, you still have something to play for. A lot of these big name guys may not play. So turn your notifications on at Only Playbook for Twitter. Let's jump into the recaps, guys. We have a lot of games to get through. First game on the board, the Falcons were traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Bills came in at 9-6. Falcons came in at 7-8. Bills were favored by 14.5 points here. They win the game by 14, 29-15 final. It was snowy. It wasn't pretty, but Bills get the job done. They're now 10-6. Falcons are 7-9. Falcons cover the 14.5 spread. Under 46.5 comes in. Buffalo has clinched a playoff spot. They are still in the lead based on the tiebreaker with the Patriots, but they're both 10-6, and there's still 1 week left to go there. So what did you guys see from this game?
Yeah, this game kind of, I think the Falcons made it competitive in the first half. Safety, two points is the first score on the board by the Falcons. I think it was a punt that was muffed, and then they got the safety on that. Mm-hmm. So they did everything they could to kind of keep it competitive against the Bills, but Bills have a lot more firepower on that offense. Even with Josh Allen, I think he had 3 interceptions, 2 in the first half, 1 in the second. Even with all of that, not going the Bills' way, they've got just too much firepower with Gabriel, Diggs, and Singletary, who's kind of coming up to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, the receivers did little to nothing this game. I was watching that very closely because one of my opponents had Stephon Diggs, and I was having a great time watching, Josh Allen's, kind of play really bad. He was 11 for 26 with 3 picks. That's terrible numbers. That's like really bad. Nobody really wins games with those numbers. But on the other hand, their run game was on fire. They're really using Devin Singletary as of the last month. They're just force feeding him out of nowhere. Like, I don't understand where this came from, but they really like to just use whatever running back is feeling good that day or something, because they've had this month of Zach Moss. Mm-hmm. They've had that couple of 3 weeks of Breida, and now they're doing the Singletary thing. And I think they're sticking with Singletary as of now. Josh Allen reaped all the fantasy points through the ground with this game with 15 carries for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, he didn't really have to play really well because he was playing against the Falcons. And fun little fact before I pass on to you. So I mentioned on last week on the preview segment of this game that the Bills wins this season have been by more than 10 points. That's the longest streak in NFL history now.
Wow.
How many games now is that?
So their last 17 wins have been by 10 or more points.
That's wild.
That's
So when they're winning, they're just destroying.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's an NFL record. So that's crazy.
God, to have a team that actually likes to put their foot on the gas, that's impressive.
Even while they're like quarterbacks throwing 3 picks.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and nothing's pretty about the Buffalo offensive stat line, just especially from throwing the ball, receivers. But like you mentioned, they force-fed Devin Singletary. Josh Allen was close to even a third rushing touchdown. He just loves running the ball. There were a ton of lanes, and then the Falcons, like you mentioned, kept it close in the first half with all the interceptions. But it was more a dictation of the Buffalo offense keeping the Falcons in the game.
Right.
And then the second half, they're like, you know what? It's snowing out and it's windy. Let's just run it against this team because no matter what you do, it works because the Falcons suck. So,
speaking of running, Matt Ryan almost ran it in for a touchdown.
he did.
Poor guy. He was so close.
Dude, it was so
pumped.
cool. Yeah, dude.
His pumped is what kind of led him to not get that touchdown afterwards. They got the taunting call, and then they didn't get any scores.
That was such a turn of events. You
I
think
know.
he scores, he's super fucking fired up, taunts the guy, gets a 15-yarder. They review it. He's short. The taunting still counts, so it's 3rd and goal from like the 16.
You know, it's not fair. If he didn't get the touchdown,
I
there
agree.
wouldn't have been no taunting
I
call.
agree.
Then
I
maybe
agree with
just
that.
be a good sport. Then maybe just be a good person.
Oh, fucking Matt Ryan. They needed something to celebrate, man. They suck.
Yeah.
But, again, nothing lackluster from them. They're 7-9 to take on the Saints next week. Divisional game, but, neither of those teams technically in it. The Saints actually technically alive, so they have a little bit more to play for. We'll get more into that later. Bills play the Jets next week, so a good chance to win, and you win the division, right? So you don't have to lose and hope the Patriots lose, but you can win and clinch the division and control your own destiny. Next game on the board, 2 teams not playing for playoff implications. The Giants were at the Chicago Bears here. Bears came into this game 6-point favorites, over under 37. Final score 29-3. Bears dominate this one against the Giants. 6 points covered easily, under 37 hits. Chicago's now 6-10. The Giants dropped to 4-12. This Bears defense was everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the reason for their win. I'm surprised that the Bears didn't score more points than the 29 points against this terrible New York Giants team, whose offense with Glennon can't get anything rolling. It was just terrible to see. And I think it's Quinn, right? I forget their defensive tackle.
Robert Quinn.
Robert Quinn, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Has the most sacks in the NFL.
I believe so.
Record as far as most sacks. So, that they've got the personnel on the defense.
Roquan Smith? It might be Roquan Smith. It's Roquan Smith. My
there
bad.
you go. Okay. So the most sacks.
A middle linebacker with sacks?
Yeah. I believe he's a tackle. Or is he a middle linebacker?
Roquan Smith's a linebacker.
Robert Quinn.
Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn. That's what we're talking about.
I have it on my notes here. I don't know why I didn't say it.
Okay.
Robert Quinn gets the most
18 sacks this year. Yep.
Yeah, so they've got the personnel. They were able to beat the Giants, and the Giants suck.
Yeah. Saquon had a nice game.
He did?
21 carries for 102 yards.
I couldn't see him.
You couldn't tell, right? It was the most invisible 100-yard rushing performance of all time. We just talked about Josh Allen's abysmal performance. Mike Glennon, and listen to this. These stats did not mean that he played a partial game or they brought in a backup or anything.
Oh, yeah.
This was his stats for the entire fucking football game of 60 minutes. 4 for 11, 24 yards, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks. He had sacked for 34 yards worth of loss, so they threw for a net of negative 10 yards.
That's
impressive.
amazing. Yeah.
Impressive.
That takes, like, that in itself, you have to be like a certain level of bad to do that.
Yeah.
How are you only throwing the ball 11 times when you're down the whole game?
Yeah, what were they doing?
Is this the most visibly openly tanking game I've seen so far?
So far, yes, because they were losing the whole game.
And they ran it 40 times still.
What the heck?
So it can be done.
Yeah.
You can openly tank.
Yeah, this is. I mean, as much credit I want to give to the Bears.
Yeah.
It's more that the Giants just suck.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the Bears play. They have a good defense and they can make things happen here and there sometimes, but they're just as bad in many scenarios.
Yeah.
They're just lucky they happen to be playing the Giants.
Yeah, so looking at this game, I was trying to figure out what to take from it, and it's, I guess, a receiver situation for next year in terms of fantasy. Like, if you have, I don't know, the 7th or 8th pick, do you pick up Darnell? Do you draft Darnell Mooney? Or
8th round, you mean?
8th
not
round,
overall?
sorry, not
Okay.
overall, 8th round, yeah. Like, I don't know.
Dude,
he was getting the ball often.
He's talented, right? There's a lot to like there. I think the issue with the receivers for the Bears, Allen Robinson, we know the talents there, has been the quarterback situation, right? So it's just going to be about how much is Fields going to develop over the offseason. Are they going to give him more reins of that offense to where he's actually throwing the ball more? Right. Because at the end of the day, we know Montgomery's still there. He's still got his. He still had an effective game, and so we know that that's what they like to focus on. So it's just going to depend. If Nagy's gone, which it sounds like he's inevitably gone.
Yeah, things could drastically change.
They could shift that offense completely, and it could be a more Justin Fields heavy, which means that, Mooney, Robinson, I don't know what the contract situation is. I'm assuming they're both still on contract for next year, but if they are, those are guys that you're definitely watching. And the Bears will take on the Vikings next week in a pretty meaningless game. Both teams out of the playoffs. Giants take on the football team next week. 2 teams out of the playoffs. So a couple of matchups there that unless you're a fan or you just have nothing else to do, you're probably not going to watch. Next game on the board was the marquee matchup of the week. What a game here. The Chiefs took on the Bengals in Cincinnati here. Cincinnati at home, 5-point dogs. They were trailing most of this game by double digits for most of the game, but they come back and win 34-31 final. Bengals are 10-6 now. They win their division. The Chiefs dropped to 11-5. Bengals, again, 5-point underdogs, win outright, over 51 hits. Another monster performance from Joe Burrow against the defense that I think a lot of us had talked about being, at least recently, the best in the league. And so I think we all kind of downplayed the Cincinnati Bengals because of the fact that we knew their defense wasn't as great. Their offense can stifle against big defensive teams, but that was not the case here. It was the Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase show.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, 3 touchdowns by Jamar Chase, and they were like catches that and passes that are difficult to get.
And some of them shouldn't have ended up as a touchdown.
Right.
It was a simple screen pass.
Yep.
And he just did his thing.
Dude, he is how fast is that guy?
He's really fast.
When he touches the football,
the
way he was separating from 7 different defensive backs that were 10 yards in front of him, I could not even that didn't even process in my brain.
Sense.
Right. He's fast. He's elusive. I mean, he can catch. He's the probably one of the best rookie wide receivers that we've ever seen.
Yeah, just broke the record for just broke Justin Jefferson's record that he just broke last year for most receiving yards by rookie.
Yeah,
I mean, to break those records, it really helps having Joe Burrow as your quarterback who can just sling it at will. I was one of those people that thought the Chiefs are going to just murder the Bengals, and they were manhandling. There was 3 moments where the Bengals were down by 14 points or more, 3 separate times. So they just kept clawing their way in. They just kept doing these deep bombs, and look what happens when you give teams a chance. Because there was 3 moments where I still believed. I was like, oh, here we go. The Chiefs are doing Chiefs things.
Yep.
And then the Chiefs are the ones dropping the deep bombs, and while the Bengals are connecting on perfect passes, and that's all it really takes. You just need to give your team the opportunity, and the Bengals love doing that. They love throwing the ball deep, and that will keep anybody in a game if you complete those passes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care how good your defense is. If you have an offense that can score that many, that's that elusive, I feel like the offense is going to be favored than the defense, personally.
Yeah, just bomb plays, right? Big play touchdowns, 1-2 play drives and things like that. Those are game changing, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we talk about the X's and O's of football of controlling the clock and running the ball, and so that way you keep the opposing defense on the field for a long time, keep their offense off, etc. But when you have a team that can score on 1 bomb or 2 plays in 30 seconds, you're putting your defense right back on the field, but there's one big key factor there called momentum and points that goes unquantified. I mean, points certainly are quantifiable, but momentum, right? And so there's something to be said about, hey, we want to keep Patty Mahomes off the field because their offense is so crazy, right? But the Bengals didn't give a fuck. They didn't deviate from their game script. They weren't let's run the ball so Mahomes stays off the field. No, they're let's throw bombs to Jamar Chase, let our best players make plays, and then we'll figure the rest out. And they won. And they won very, very impressively. Probably their best victory I think from the Bengals since I can even remember.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I've
This
seen
is a statement victory from the Cincinnati Bengals, and they clinched the playoffs, and mad respect.
Yeah, well, the craziest thing was the last drive. Right, remember they had the 9 play drive, but 6 of those were in the red zone, and they It was fourth down. Decided to go for it on fourth down instead of kick the field goal that would have made them 34-31 and given a minute back to the Chiefs, but they decided to go for it, get a penalty call, luckily, and put the time down to like 3 seconds and kick a field goal after that. So.
Yeah, exactly. So proper management of the clock is what happened there. I mean, yes, they were the benefactor of a penalty, but the intention was there. You don't want to kick a field goal with 30 seconds left and give the ball to Patty Mahomes, right? So when you have that opportunity, you want to milk the clock and not leave much time for them. So yeah, Bengals 10-6 now. They take on the Browns next week in Cleveland, but they have clinched the division. So congrats to the Bengals. We don't know how it's going to shake out for them next week in terms of who's going to play and who's going to rest. So to be determined there. The Chiefs are 11-5 there. They are going to travel to Denver to take on the Broncos. There is still some playoff implications for them. They're tied with the Titans right now for the number 1 seed. Titans hold the tiebreaker based on head-to-head win percentage. So if Tennessee loses next week and the Chiefs win, they can still clinch a first-round bye. So I don't think the Chiefs are going to be looking to bench their players or anything like that. That takes us to the Tennessee Titans. They were the next game on the board. They were hosting the Dolphins, winners of 7 straight, coming in with a ton of momentum. Titans came in here at only 3.5-point favorites, over under at 40, and the Titans, I guess, showed the Dolphins' true colors, is one way to put it. 34-3 final, just absolutely destroyed them. 11-5 now. Tennessee is literally, as we talk here, the number 1 seed and the first round bye of the AFC. The Dolphins now fall to 8-8. They are eliminated from playoff contention. So what a crazy roller coaster of a high all to have it just kind of snapped in 1 week. So great ride for them. Probably a ton of promise coming in next season. But what do you guys see for this game specifically?
Yeah, first things first, great job on Tennessee's offense to be able to evade the most blitzing team in the NFL. So I think that they ran the ball efficiently, gave the ball to Foreman often, and he had an amazing day, 132 yards, got in the end zone as well. And they were calling a lot of play action plays. I know it's like a staple for Tannehill to get play actions and then go to his targets like A.J. Brown, things like that. So they were doing that often, and it just kind of got them to get points. And on the Dolphin side, just not a lot going on. I mean, they force-fed Waddle last week, didn't give the ball to Parker at all the week before, and then it was kind of like, I don't know. I'm not really sure why Waddle wasn't more part of the game plan as it was last week. But Tua just not able to get it done. The 5 yards can only do so much, and it just didn't work out.
So I think this is like a respect thing, the whole Waddle and Parker thing. I still think Parker's a number 1 wide receiver. It was just the whole Matt Lattimore covering Parker that they had to force feed Waddle. They don't want to force feed Waddle. They should force feed Waddle, but Parker, if you take away all the injuries and all the times he's missed, he's one of the best receivers in football. He's a wide receiver 1. And I think they were just like, oh, hey, look, we don't have anybody like double teaming you. Let's force feed you. And that wasn't a good idea. That wasn't a good idea. He got 13 targets versus Waddle 7 targets. And this was just a poor performance. And they happened to be on the other end of what we talked about could happen, and that was a team runs the ball so well that it just throws everything off for the whole game. And that's, Titans, they didn't have to throw the ball. They barely even had to throw the ball. Tannehill was 13 for 18 for 2 touchdowns. That's about as efficient as it comes with the lowest amount of throws you can do. The Dolphins just got manhandled. And I don't think it's so much the Dolphins, because we know Dolphins were never elite. It was just like a nice ride to see like a struggling team do what they can to like try to make it. But I think that the kudos here definitely has to go to the Titans, because every team has some sort of adversity, and then that causes their downfall, right? Some teams have multiple adversities, and they still are 11-5, taking down teams that were on a 7-game win streak, all this stuff. So I don't know how the Titans do it. I don't know what the main key ingredient here is, but it doesn't seem like it matters. I think the Titans just... They have like a winning formula. They just find ways to win.
Yeah, they play as a team. I feel like Vrabel's got a really, really good grasp on that locker room and everything, because there's really, you look at that team, and yeah, Derrick Henry was like the alpha male, but he doesn't have that type of selfish type of personality at all, right? So when your best players are as selfless as like a Derrick Henry, and he's hurt now, everybody's just having to play for one another because they don't have, I guess, A.J. Brown maybe, but they don't have like the stud right now anymore. So it's just a bunch of random guys, like a ragtag bunch of teams that's, their defense is good, but from an offensive perspective, they're running the ball with Foreman and Hilliard, guys that, coming into the season, nobody even knew who they were or they weren't even relevant. And so the way they're getting this done has to be a predicament to how well they're coached, how prepared they come, because, with a roster like this, you look up and down on this stat sheet, and then you compare it to like the roster of like a Minnesota Vikings per se. We're so much more talented on offense than this team is, right? Yeah. It's not even close. And so a team that literally blitz as much as the Dolphins do, the Tennessee Titans were able to put up 34 points and then also hold the Miami team to just 3 points. And so, yeah, Tua 3 fumbles, 1 loss, 1 interception, 4 sacks. I mean, just very, very all over the place. And I don't know. They're 8-8, so again, like you mentioned, it's a feel-good story from how far they've coming into the season, but still a lot of question marks for them going into next season. They take on the Patriots next week, so a chance to maybe win a game and be above 500 and call it kind of a moral victory. But at that point, what are you really playing for? Tennessee has a good chance to lock up that number 1 spot and a bye because they're going to be at the Houston Texans next week. So win for Tennessee, and they clinch the bye, so I don't expect them to bench anybody. There's still a lot to play for. Next game on the board, the Raiders traveled to Indianapolis to take on the Colts here. Raiders came in at 6.5-point underdogs, over under 44.5. Raiders won a close one at the final seconds with the winning field goal, 23-20 final. Raiders and Colts are both 9-7 now. Covered the 6.5-point spread, under 44.5 hits. Pretty big upset from the Raiders here to keep themselves alive in the playoff. Shoshot, your survivor pick was the Colts. What did you guys see here?
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor still kind of did Jonathan Taylor things, and we talked about how they need to stack up the box and stop them to be able to win, but that wasn't the play here. I think the Carson Wentz just kind of wasn't as accurate as he needed to be, and that was the downfall of that team, and that's why the Raiders won. Raiders just kind of persevered. They're such a weird team. Like, you can never tell what's gonna happen. Like, you have guys like Zay Jones that just comes out of nowhere, gets you 8 receptions, 120 yards. Like, I don't really know what to make of this team, but they needed to buckle down and win the game to have a chance to get into the playoffs, and they were able to do it. So yeah, kudos to the Raiders using Marcus Mariota at times. Didn't see that coming either. But I don't really know what to make of them still.
Yeah, this is just classic Raiders. Like sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, and neither of those are surprising. Because Derek Carr didn't really play that well. He was efficient with the ball. He was 24 for 31, but he did throw 2 picks, right? And somehow, some way, the Raiders defense actually stepped up, and that's been their reason for a lot of people picking against them, as their defense is just so bad. But they have this crazy stat about how they're number 1 in the league in pressures forced on non-blitzing plays, and that's literally what happened. Is the Colts just couldn't keep up with the amount of pressure they were putting. Yeah. Carson Wentz crumbled in those times. He didn't throw a pick, but he just also didn't do enough to win this game. They try to stay with the run game. It worked at times. It didn't work at times. And by then, the Raiders are finding Zay Jones open all over the place, and it was a little too late.
Yeah, the Zay Jones and Hunter Renfrow show, man. Tell me if you've heard that one before, because I sure haven't. The Raiders, yeah, they're the biggest phenomenon of any NFL team to me. Like, I can't think of another team that I'm like, I just don't get this team. I just don't understand it, right? Like, there's teams that have glaring deficiencies, like the Chargers. Like, we know they're good at offense, but they're horrible at defense. Like, there's teams that are like defensive-minded, offensive-minded, but I'm like, I don't even know what the Raiders are. Like, what is their identity?
I don't think they know either.
They have no identity. Yeah. They've had a tumultuous, like, roller coaster of a season. They started the season with John Gruden, fired John Gruden. Like, all this crap has gone on around the locker room. And ironically enough, they take on the Chargers next week in a win-and-in situation. Now, get this. This is wild. The Colts are technically still not in the playoffs either, right? Right now, they're the 6th seed. They do take on the Jaguars next week, so I like their chances to clinch a playoff spot. Yep. But if the Colts lose to the Jaguars, the Raiders and Chargers play against each other with nothing to play for. They've both clinched the playoffs.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
So if the Colts lose, both the other two
both
teams
the Raiders and the Chargers
I see, yeah,
make the playoffs.
I see, okay.
If the Colts lose.
Yeah.
If the Colts win.
Colts win, they're in.
Okay.
Colts win, they're in, and that makes the Vegas Chargers game win and in. So it's a must win. That's probably one of the biggest matchups on the board in terms of playoff implications next week.
So on the AFC wild card, there's only those 3 teams that can make it in, is what you're saying.
Well, the Bills and the Patriots are.
So yeah. All the other top 5 are locked in. Pittsburgh is 9th and still technically not eliminated, and Baltimore is 11th and still technically not eliminated.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
But
what needs to happen on the on that game?
I don't know. I could write probably 2 paragraphs for everything that probably needs to go right for those teams. So we're talking about the most likely, but yes, those guys are technically still not eliminated.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting to take a look and see kind of, I don't know, like it's a situation for the Raiders and Chargers where 2 teams that have had roller coaster seasons, right? At times look good, at times look like what the hell, and they've probably been more on the fake news side than on the real news side. But one of the fake news teams has a chance to sneak into the playoffs. So
and the AFC's like top teams aren't that great, so these teams can definitely beat them.
Yeah,
if they had to play in the NFC going in like that, then the Packers would send you home butt naked.
Yeah.
But, the Bills could just give up the game at any point. The
Titans,
Patriots still can't put up points. And the Titans could do some weird shit where things don't go their way.
They're not like the Titans. The Titans as the number 1 seed right now are not like a powerhouse that you're like, holy shit, it's Green Bay in the NFC. That's not. They don't give that aura at all.
Nobody's afraid of these teams.
Nope. Nobody's afraid of the Titans. I'd say maybe you're probably afraid of the Chiefs at the 2 seed, but you're not afraid of the Bengals. They're young. Buffalo's shown inconsistency. The Patriots are the Patriots. So, yeah, top to bottom, outside of the Chiefs, no one's like going into a game being like, I'm terrified to play, which makes it that much more wide open, which means like a team like the Chargers could sneak into that 7th seed and pull off an upset. That'd be fun to see.
Very likely.
The Colts, like I mentioned, take on the Jags. So Colts win and they're in. So that'll be interesting. Next game on the board, Shove It, your survivor pick was the Patriots at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Patriots came into this game as 16-point favorites, and they covered that and then some. 50-10 final, over 41.5. They cover on their own here. This doesn't need to be broken down into rocket science. This was literally the epitome of the Patriots playing the Patriots way. Mm-hmm. Defense forcing a shit ton of turnovers, offense running the ball down your throat. And Trevor Lawrence, quite frankly, just seems like he might be playing on the other team for how many interceptions and how bad these interceptions and how costly, like in your own territory, these interceptions.
How many weeks do you give him next year? How many weeks do you give him? 6?
Dude, I
7?
don't know. I am so concerned.
This is, I know Peyton Manning came into the league and threw a pick 6, and Brett Favre came into the league and threw a pick 6, and Peyton Manning threw like 20-something picks his first year, all that stuff. But we don't live in that era anymore where there's no analytics and like we could find really, really good data on why Trevor Lawrence sucks.
Yeah.
Like he's just bad.
Yeah.
And I want to say 6 weeks. I will give him 6 weeks next year. They're going to go 0-6 with him at quarterback. And then we're going to have to make a change.
Yeah, Zach Wilson looked a lot better than Trevor Lawrence did this week. But Trevor Lawrence did get into the end zone. We talked about how he can't find a way.
Congratulations. You did your job.
So, no, it was all Patriots. Damian Harris gets in the end zone 2 times, and Ramondre Stevenson just running the ball like they do. And, this is Jaguars, dude. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Wilkerson caught 2 touchdowns. The first one was his first career NFL touchdown. Mac Jones, efficient, didn't have to do too much. The run set up the pass, 22 of 30, 227, 3 touchdowns. No interceptions, no sacks. You like to see that. I know it's the Jaguars. But, again, took care of business now. They take on the Dolphins next week, and a team, probably still has a ton of heart and things to play for. The Jags take on the Colts, and they're probably openly tanking, currently looking like probably the number 1 draft pick. So if they lose next week, they automatically get the number 1 pick. So the Jags are probably looking to lose. Back-to-back years, you get the number 1 pick. Trevor Lawrence and shit, bro.
Oh my God, it can always be worse.
Yeah,
that's what tells me. My season has sucked as a Vikings fan, but it could always be worse.
Yeah. They might get some offensive line help out Trevor Lawrence.
They need weapons on the receiving core. Laquan Treadwell, leading receiver, 6 for 87.
Yeah.
Have they actually found something in Laquan Treadwell?
I think so, because I've seen some of these highlights, and he's making some pretty nice catches.
And we know how bad everybody else is, so the fact that he's still somewhat producing in this shit of an offense.
Yeah. Maybe also that's why this offense is shit.
They're like, Laquan. Where are you at, Laquan?
Like that,
all his interceptions are targeted to Laquan.
This is his 3rd team now, and he's been like 3rd or 4th receiver in every team previous to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why would you think? You want like a nice Ferrari for Lawrence.
Yeah.
You don't want someone's beat up like 1972 Camry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the touchdown came really late, so at that point, like, are the Patriots really trying that hard?
No, they weren't, because I had that player on my team. It was the running back, and it was a screen pass. Yeah. It was like a dump off.
Yeah.
So no,
and it was 50-3. So I don't think the Patriots were trying.
Right.
But Patriots take care of business there. Again, a lot to play for next week. They're still in the playoffs, but they take on the Dolphins. Next game on the board, a lot closer than I think a lot of us anticipated. The Buccaneers and Tom Brady traveled to New York to take on the Jets. Or should I say New Jersey, actually? Buccaneers came into this game 13-point favorites, over under 45.5. Buccaneers do squeak out a victory, 28-24 final. Jets covered the 13-point spread, over 45.5 hits. Buccaneers are now 12-4. Jets dropped to 4-12. Braxton Berrios.
He's good.
He's fun to watch.
Yeah, he is.
I think that guy's earned himself like a look from a contending team as like that slot guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah. I want to see a team with Cooper Kupp, Renfro,
and Braxton Berrios. Dude. Holy shit.
Tom Brady is nutting his pants right now.
Dude, the routes that could be run, all of these option plays and everything. Oh, my God.
And you got Gronk in the middle. Is there a theme here? No, right?
You get Rex Burkhead.
There's no theme. Just talented receivers.
Rex Burkhead as your running back. No theme? Oh, okay.
Yeah, wait, CMC.
Yeah, yes. Oh, yeah. He'll be here. He'll be here by like week 3. But the Buccaneers take care of business here. I know it was closer than we expected. Mike Evans did end up playing. Antonio Brown played, but he was the story of this game. Buccaneers do win the game. Obviously, they're 12-4. They were expected to win, but Antonio Brown walked away from the game of football in the middle of a game. I don't know what all of the reports are, but what I heard was Bruce Arians, in 2 separate occasions, asked him to go into the game. Yeah. He refused. Bruce Arians told him to get out, and then he just literally took off his jersey, walked off, and then he was like running into the end zone, waving goodbye, like while game was happening.
Yeah, I don't understand that. It makes no sense. Why would he do that?
A guy who like literally came in saying, "I'm just here focused on football, and I want to play football." Why are you refusing to go into the game?
I saw some other articles that had some other implications on why he did that. So turns out he was 8 catches away from 333,000.
Yeah.
And like certain amount of yards, like 200 yards.
All attainable.
So apparently he wanted to go in the game early. And that's when Bruce Arians was like, no, this isn't time yet. Because they have no receivers. Yeah. They can't afford to lose him. We're going to win this game. Even though it didn't look like that. You still have to have that mindset.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to throw in him. Like, they didn't want to use him so much when they know they're going to make the playoffs, that when they know they're going to need Antonio Brown's work, like when it matters. So I think that's why they were limiting him. But he's like, dude, you're holding me back from $1 million. So I think he just lost it. Like, it's a fuse issue. It's a mental health issue. This isn't like, I'm not, he's still the most skilled out of everybody that came into the league at that year. He still got it. He just a couple of days ago, he caught like 9 catches and whatnot. But there's a huge problem here. And if you were to be able to get Antonio Brown on your team, would you?
Would. Oh, absolutely. If you can find a way to kind of get him, I mean, he kind of screwed himself up. And at this point, the only way you can go is probably up at this point. And if you can utilize Antonio Brown for his skills and get him on your team, I mean, like, so I would do it.
That's funny because I got into a phone argument, like a text message battle between D-Rudge, who was like, no, this guy's a nutcase. He's like, I don't want him anywhere near my team, right?
Depends,
because the thing is, like, yes, you can define him as a cancer to the team, right? Mm-hmm. But this is a benign cancer. All you do is remove the cancer and your team's still going, flowing as it normally is. It's not like an OBJ situation where he's calling out players and causing actual malignancy within the team. This guy is just a, nutcase. You just, okay, didn't work out. Let's move you over. Life goes on, right? Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. So for that reason, I think it's worth the risk because, what would the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be right now if they didn't have Antonio Brown? It would be a little bit scarier. And he has stepped in a lot. But if you take him out of the picture now, at this moment, I don't think it changes all that much. Mm-hmm. I don't think it. But the fact is, even Bruce Arians in the interview, I think this morning or sometime during the day, he was like, no regrets. I don't regret it. Yeah. Because the boom potential was so much higher than the bust potential, right?
And they got it. He scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl last year, right? Like, he's an elite player, and his skills haven't diminished at all. So I think that his market value has probably gone down. Like, if you go out and get Antonio Brown, you're probably not paying as much as you would have if this whole shenanigans did not happen. So, like, maybe you invest in, I know you mentioned, like, a life coach or someone that's, like, there for Antonio Brown throughout the process to kind of keep it in check.
That's the plan. But even if that doesn't work out, who gives a shit, right? You paid him minimum amount. If it doesn't work out, just leave. Thank you for your service, right? Like, it's that simple to me. The boom potential is so high that the bust potential doesn't really bother me, unless he's like
influencing other people.
Yeah,
unless he's
I think
influencing the other people.
that's the other side of the coin, right? Yeah, Antonio Brown probably in our lifetime was the most talented receiver we saw play. Maybe I mean Randy Moss. Obviously,
after Randy Moss.
After Randy Moss, but like he was generational talent, right? Generational talent. I think the situation here is he wasn't like being handed a ton of options in terms of where he could go. Like Tom Brady had to vouch for him to come play here.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Arians was on board because of Tom Brady vouching for him, right? So at the end of the day, it was a privilege to him to get signed by this team. So like Bruce Arians is calling your shots on when you can go in and not go into the game, right?
Yeah.
So he just has to be grateful. I don't think at the end of the day, Bruce Arians is maliciously like, we're going to withhold this $1 million by not putting him in the game. Yeah. It's just he controls the game. He's the fucking coach, right? And so Antonio Brown was in a situation where he had to just do what he's told. Like that. This is your role now because of everything else, the way it's unfolded. And so that's the biggest problem is, yes, dude, his talent is still fucking there. We've already seen it like a week ago. He has to be put into a regime where a coach or somebody can be like, listen, this is the scenario. Like, your talent is there. Everything else is a noise. We can't have you creating a cancer in the locker room. We can't have you doing what you've done in the past. Mm-hmm. But what kind of coach is willing to take on that type of
I mean, if Bill Belichick couldn't do it, then...
Yeah.
And the problem is, this is the problem. The problem is, at that moment, he could be like, sure, okay, let's do this. I'm on board. But the thing with, like, mental health is that you could snap at any moment. Right, and that's what's happening here. Is like I think he was on board. I think he verbally even said like, "Yeah, I'm all about the team." Yeah. Blah blah blah. And it's not like he was like getting into a fight with somebody else. This was like an internal battle that he lost.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you for your service, and hopefully you get to play again because it's nice watching him, and it's even nicer to draft him super late as a value pick and use him. Yeah. But it sucks that it had to end this way. But hopefully he finds a job somewhere else. If not, I'm not worried about his
I just hope he gets help. If he doesn't find a job somewhere else, get help so the rest of your life doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
But the Bucs take on the Panthers next week, and the Jets are traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills. The next game on the board, divisional game, the Eagles clinch a playoff spot by beating the Washington football team on the road as 3-point favorites. They covered that, win 20-16, under 45 hits. This was a big... similar pattern for the Eagles in how they won, how they, played, running the football, running effectively, and playing actually pretty decent defense. So a lot of runs, although not incredibly effective, but they were able to still continue to work the run enough that Jalen Hurts was able to make some solid passes down the field. Goddard looked good. Smith had a couple of catches there, but Washington football team at the end of the day, just not enough to get it done.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. They were they were close to kind of getting the lead at the very end, but then there was that sick interception, diving catch by I think the safety. I forget his name, but
Jesse Bates.
Jesse Bates. Yeah, amazing play, full extension dive.
McLeod.
It's Rodney McLeod.
Okay. McLeod.
We had the same problem with this same name like last week. Yeah, you kept saying McLeod, but it's spelled like McLeod. How is that McLeod? Anyways, continue.
Need the phonetics next to it. But no, that sick interception. I think you're right. They just Eagles ran the ball well. No Gibson for Washington, but Patterson comes in, serviceable, back, gets a touchdown. Eagles just find a way to get it done by running the ball.
Yeah, I was at Buffalo Wild Wings by myself, and I was there were
sounds so sad.
There was it was nothing sad about it. I actually preferred that, to be honest with you. But there were so many Eagles fans. There were more than
the Hewlin one again.
Yeah, but more than we've ever seen before. Like the whole place was just green. Oh, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like this is my fantasy quarterback. Like little do they know, I'm gonna be like shouting E-A-G-O. Yeah. But this was the worst game to watch as a fantasy owner of Jalen Hurts because all the runs went to freaking Boston Scott in the goal line, and he capitalized off of that for no reason. Anyways, Eagles did really well. I'm actually happy for him. I love watching when my team isn't going to make it, which is the situation right now. I don't want these powerhouses to just dominate. Like, I want to see the underdogs win. And the Eagles, teams like the Eagles, Colts, Chargers, Raiders, I would hope like one of these teams pulls through. And I think the Eagles actually have some of the tools to make life a little hard for these big dogs. So we'll see.
When you have an X factor like Jalen Hurts, a guy that you have to literally game plan around entirely. I mean, it changes the dynamic of which, you're playing against a guy that, isn't as mobile as Jalen Hurts and is only one dimensional. So you're absolutely right. I mean, teams have known for the last 4 or 5 weeks that the Eagles are going to run it down your throat, but they're still able to run it down your throat. So clearly something's working for them.
And then another thing, like an intangible, right? So at the end of the game, did you guys see the fans that fell?
Yeah.
while Jalen Hurts is walking by.
Well,
Dude,
on the way to the locker room.
That composure is what I want in all my loved ones. Like, he was literally about to possibly die, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's things falling on top of you,
right.
and the dude's just sitting there smiling, ready for a picture. I was like, okay, well, that tells me a lot more that you don't see on the field that you can, like, he's, situational awareness is what that is, and like knowing that he was safe. It was nice to see that people react that way.
It's his second year in the league, and he's already captain. So like the coaches probably see this type of character leadership that he has.
Off-field stuff, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're right. They're impressive. They've clinched a playoff spot. Earlier, this NFC East was a division where it's just all mediocrity. But this year, we have two teams from this division that are going to make the playoffs now. So interesting to see kind of how the standings shake out and who the Eagles are going to face in the first round. But next week, they do take on the Cowboys. So a little bit of a tune-up game for both teams. Both teams have clinched. So I don't know what the situation is going to look like there, but nonetheless, divisional game. I'm sure neither team wants to lose. Football team traveled to the Giants, so another divisional game, but two teams with nothing to really play for but pride. Next game on the board, the Rams travel to Baltimore to take on the Lamar Jackson-less Ravens. Once again, it was Tyler Huntley at the helm. Ravens came into this game as 4.5-point dogs. Over-under was 46.5, and the Rams win this game close. 2019 final. Ravens do cover their dog spread under 46.5 hits. Rams are now 12-4. Baltimore drops to 8-8. Mathematically still not out of it, but it is looking really, really difficult for them at this time.
Yeah, I think the Ravens played a pretty good ball game, and but the Rams were able to call back and get the win. Cooper Kupp makes it into the end zone. I think Matthew Stafford didn't look as accurate as he should have, but late in the game, OBJ gets the catch in the 10-yard line, and then gets the touchdown. I think afterwards. So like plays that I think it was a fourth down, and plays that he wouldn't have difficult catches, and they just found ways to win it. And then when they get the ball back, Von Miller gets a sack on Huntley, like late in the game to force it with like 18 seconds left, and the Ravens had no answer after that. So it's like key moments like that where the defense steps up, and Stafford and company find ways to get points that define the win.
Yeah, definitely. The Stafford is the luckiest motherfucker on this planet. You can't expect to play like that and beat non-Ravens teams. Like, good luck playing like that against Aaron Rodgers. He knows what that feels like. But yeah, so fun fact here, some bright spots on the Ravens side that are going to go unnoticed because their season's likely going to end next week. Mark Andrews, he surpassed a guy named Michael Jackson for the most receiving yards in a season in Ravens history.
Wow.
So we saw like a historic moment this year. It was nice to have him on the fantasy team.
Mm-hmm.
I wish he played like that again this week, but he didn't. That's okay.
I know.
But yeah, it's crazy how like low key this guy goes. He never gets in the argument for the best tight end in the league, and he's playing like the best tight end.
This year, he definitely warrants being in the competition with Kelsey and Kittle.
I think he's above because Kittle, he gets injured, right? Like you're only useful when you're on the field.
Yep.
And Kelsey, like there's clear intentions to not force feed Kelsey anymore on that team, right? They want to make it ambiguous. They want defenses to wonder where the ball's going to go. Ravens, not so much.
Yep.
Not so much. The ball's going to Andrews. The ball's going to Andrews, and they still can't stop him.
Not to mention, Kelsey is playing with Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And Baltimore has had Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson the last 3 or 4 weeks, and Andrews has still been producing, right?
He's actually producing more.
Yeah.
So, like...
Take notes, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. Take notes, Lamar. Take notes. You know where you need to go.
Yeah. He's incredible. He's going to be obviously one of the top tight ends off the board next year in fantasy for sure. Rashad Bateman, 7 for 58, 10 targets, led the team. Hollywood Brown, 8 targets. Bateman, I'm intrigued for heading into next season as well.
Yeah,
kind of seeing his offseason development.
Yeah,
develop into that wide receiver number 1 for this team, and work alongside Andrews. That's going to be a really nice team.
And on the other end, Sony Michel, that's going to be next year's Montgomery. Yeah. Like this guy's, people are just not going to really remember him because of this like late surge. And then people that are aware of what's going on know that he's an every down back, and you draft him in the 4th round, you reap the benefits.
Yeah,
And there's Cam Akers too.
Yeah, Achilles. We'll see how that goes.
He's the wild card for sure, but Sony Michel has done enough to warrant getting a look next year. Yeah, again, another nice game for him.
Or even if it's not for this team, it could be for a different team.
Yeah.
But Cam Akers' Achilles, that's the worst injury you can come back from. So it's a little iffy there. We still don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp again, 6 for 95 and a touchdown. He got his. And now the Ravens, 12-4, they take on the 49ers next week at home. Or I'm sorry, the Rams, 12-4, take on the 49ers next week at home. The Ravens are going to be at home against the Steelers to wrap up the season there in a divisional game. Next game on the board, the Broncos and Chargers were battling it out in L.A. Chargers came into this game 6.5-point favorites, over under 45.5. Chargers win this easily, 34-13 final, cover the spread, over 45.5 hits. Chargers now 9-7 in a win-and-in situation next week against the Raiders. Broncos are now 7-9. They take on the Chiefs next week, but they are out of it. Drew Lock was the quarterback, and as Drew Lock has shown us in the past, he is not the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what led to the loss for the Broncos. They just couldn't get the ball moving on offense. Not a lot going on there. And then the Chargers just have a lot more firepower. I thought the Broncos defense would kind of step up a little bit more and stop the Chargers because they are a pretty decent defense. But when you're not able to run the ball or be efficient on offense, you're letting the Chargers go out there often, then it's just going to be a numbers game, and Chargers win the ball.
You're not going to outshoot out the Chargers, right? So your job, Broncos, was to run the ball well, which every other team has done that has faced Chargers.
Yep.
And what could you not do? Run the ball well. And you just dug yourself into a hole. If you can't, the one reason you run the ball well is to maintain the clock and not give the other team a chance to score 34 points. Mm-hmm. You couldn't do that. So you basically minimized all your opportunities by running the ball. Mm-hmm. And then you gave the other team the opportunity to do what they normally do, which is put up 34 points. So the only way you can beat the teams like Chargers is by running it down their throat and getting up to 30, 35 points, because the Chargers have the they have the capability of doing that. So if you were to put up 35 points on running the ball, you would have won this game, because all these things that would have happened after, all the things that went wrong after you not running the ball well would not have happened. And, just that's all you have to do is run the ball well against the Chargers. I don't understand why you did not understand this. I don't understand why you didn't even throw screen passes to the running backs to do like what's that word I'm looking for? A pseudo run, with throwing the ball to your running backs. They didn't even do that. So this was just a disaster from the beginning. And then the turnovers on top of that, it was a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it home. Is the Chargers probably this year have been notorious for losing the time of possession battle, right? Because they don't run the ball a lot. They throw the ball a lot of incompletions, a lot of 3-and-outs. Well, the Chargers actually won the time of possession in this game just by a little over a minute or a little under a minute. So it was really close, but the Broncos' MO, like you mentioned, is running the football and controlling the clock. They were only 3 of 11 on third down, so they couldn't extend any drives to really keep that time of possession and run the ball. Chargers were 9 of 15. So the Chargers were pretty much getting everything they wanted on third down, and they controlled the clock when they're a team that literally throws the ball more than they run. So the one turnover from Denver certainly didn't help, but yeah, that was the MO. Chargers took care of business. Again, they have a big game next week at Las Vegas against the Raiders, win and in for either team. So that should be very, very exciting. Broncos are out of it. They take on the Chiefs next week.
So there was 1 turnover, but there was 3 turnover on
downs. Yep.
So which is the same.
1 of 4 on 4 downs. Yeah. Horrendous. So just cannot convert when they needed to. Third downs, fourth downs, whatever the case may be. But next game on the board, we're taking the 49ers at home here, hosting the Texans. 49ers with Trey Lance at the helm were 12.5-point favorites. They do actually cover. They win 23-7 final. They're now 9-7. Texans dropped to 4-12, under 44 hits. Close game. I mean, I guess maybe on the scoreboard not as close, but the 49ers didn't run away with this game like maybe Jimmy G led 49ers might have. But I will say I started Trey Lance, and I was pleasantly surprised and pretty okay with his performance, to be honest.
Yeah, Trey Lance, I think, did just enough to kind of keep the 49ers in the game. He didn't lose the game for them. I expected more from the Texans. I didn't think that the cover would I didn't think that the 49ers would hit the spread, but they did. Surprisingly, I think it was a late run at the end of the game that kind of allowed them to do that. I expected more from Houston. I expected more from. I know Brandon Cooks did get a touchdown, but just they weren't able to get that offense going as well. They only 7 points. So yeah, it was an unfortunate loss for the Texans, and maybe they're just tanking at this point.
I mean, Denver Broncos should have been taking notes, because the Texans were able to beat the Chargers by running the ball well, right? Mm-hmm. And then now Texans are back down to earth, playing like how they normally play.
Yeah.
Running the ball on an average of 2.9 yards per carry for Rex Burkhead. That's the Burkhead we're used to.
Yep.
All these websites all week long was like, #1 waiver pick, Rex Burkhead. You might not have heard his name before, but he might give you 30 points this week. And I just turned the channel off.
It's a good trailer voice.
Thanks. But yeah, it might have been a good trailer voice, but the idea behind that was shit.
Yeah.
And it reinforces why you should listen to this podcast and not these garbage places that only do their job because they're getting paid. There's no passion behind what they do. It's just like random people, and they're like, oh, I'm getting paid for this. I'm just going to pick random people that are on the top of the waiver wire.
I'm going to be different. I'm going to get clickbait. I'm going to see what gets the views and shit like that at this point because the money's coming in no matter what.
Trying to help you.
Yes.
They're not trying to help you.
This entire segment right here is going to get clipped into its own video because it's incredibly important.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody that listens to the podcast.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, again, 49ers took care of business. Trey Lance, 16 of 23, 249, 2 touchdowns. Did have 1 interception. Was a little bit mobile, 8 for 31 on the ground. Elijah Mitchell had a great game again, 21 for 119. He looks good. 2 catches, 11 yards, and caught a touchdown pass. Deebo Samuel, they've gotten involved 7 carries this game. So they really tried to give Deebo a little bit more run from the backfield. He did have 3 catches, 63 yards, and a touchdown. I think the one guy I'm most disappointed in was George Kittle. Big playoff week. Maybe a lot of people had Kittle in their finals, and back-to-back really, really dud-like performances.
I can't see myself owning Kittle in the near future because he warrants too high of a pick, and then you get games like this. There's no security. Yeah. Like, I'd rather not draft a tight end and then get a Dalton Schultz later and then just get whatever he produces and not get angry about it. Because when I draft people like Kittle, I'm using a high draft picks to get him. Or I'm trading away people like Chase, right? Yeah. So you expect, the expectations are really high, and he hasn't been producing. And he's healthy. So, what's the deal here?
It's just the fact that the 49ers run the ball more. They love running the ball. So, probably not Kittle's talent, but just his usage.
Kittle ran the ball once too because they probably realized that.
Yeah, exactly. He had 1 end around for 6 yards. And so, they know he blocks really well in the run, right? And especially in that zone blocking scheme. So he's perfect for their offense. So he doesn't have to go out there and catch passes for them to be successful, which is the downfall of owning him as a fantasy owner. Yeah. So, the way he's valued in fantasy, yes, he can have those insane games like he had like 3 weeks and 4 weeks ago, but he can also give you this, whereas typically you're not going to get this from like an Andrews or probably from a Kelsey or
right, because I think I bet if I go back and look at all the games and like kind of like try to analyze them, I bet it's the bad teams that Kittle does bad against because they just run down your throat.
Yes.
And then when they have to keep up, they're like, oh shit, where's that guy?
Yep. Right. Exactly. That probably sounds that's probably spot on.
So then we'd probably have to pick up like, a Knox. Yeah. If you're gonna draft Kelsey, Kittle, you're going to have to pick up another tight end for games like this because the trend is starting to become more and more evident, at least under Kyle Shanahan. Yep. You're going to have some security blanket.
And if you're looking beyond this season, if Trey Lance is the future, we know he's kind of a read option, predominantly run-heavy guy as well. So he's going to be incorporated into that offense even more than Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not a run-first guy, which also will diminish the fantasy value of the receivers, tight ends, etc. So definitely something to watch out for next week or next year. 49ers next week take on the Rams in LA. The Texans take on the Titans at home. So next game on the board, another marquee matchup this week. A statement game for both teams is what we called it. We were looking for both teams to come away victorious here. Obviously, that can't happen in the sport of football. Only one team can win. The Cardinals were here in Dallas against the Cowboys. Cardinals came into this game on the road as 6-point dogs, over under 51. Cardinals win a close game, 25-22 final, cover the 6-point dog spread, under 51 hits. Both teams now move to 11-5. Kyler Murray is now 9-0. in AT&T Stadium.
Damn.
He has the best record in high school, college, and the pros in AT&T Stadium.
Damn. Interesting.
Best, highest win percentage record. So it is no longer Jerry's world. It is Kyler's world.
That's awesome.
It's Eli's world and Kyler's world.
Exactly.
Real quick, I always felt bad, like, talking about how I don't believe in the Cowboys yet. I felt bad.
Same.
A little bit of bad feeling was felt. However, they also have not beaten a team that's won over 10 games. Right, like they're beating up on the bad teams, and we saw this a mile away. And Kyler Murray was like, let's just kind of expose these guys real quick. However, I'm not like trying to shit on the Cowboys, but this was their first time playing against a good opponent that everybody would agree is a good opponent. Right. And these are the games that have to shut up analysts like us.
Yes.
These are the games we needed. This is what I've been asking for you, Cowboys. I needed for you to beat a team like this using your normal methods, not random punt returns, not blocked for stuff like that. I just wanted you to manhandle a good team so I can be like, all right, Cowboys are number one. They could beat the Packers if need be. But now, I don't think so. I think Dak Prescott is the weakest link on this offense out of nowhere.
Wow.
Out of nowhere. Yeah, didn't see that one
Hot
coming.
take. Yeah.
Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these type of things don't get seen on the stat sheet, right? Like what he threw?
He has
for,
good numbers,
yeah.
decent numbers, right?
Yeah.
On paper.
But there was third downs in the red zone where he would not be looking at open players. It was like it seemed like a player that was playing out of fear. Mm-hmm. Like he was like, let me just like make the most secure plays. Mm-hmm. When before he got injured,
Cooper Rush?
No,
who are you talking about?
No. The wide receiver that got hurt this game towards ACL.
Gallup.
Yep. He was open on like 3 plays downfield that just got ignored. And I'm like, dude, the landscape of this game would be completely different if he had touched on those third quarter touchdowns. So, and then some of those plays, those drives ended in a halt or Zerline. I think, did he miss a field goal?
He missed a field goal.
Yeah.
So a lot of things went wrong because of these missed opportunities, and you can't blame the running backs for it. They did what they were told to do. You can't really blame the offensive line. They didn't really allow too many crazy things to happen. Dak did run for his life quite often, and he, one was called back because of a penalty. All that being said, great, but the reason this game was lost is because of those moments that you could have just grasped and you didn't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, right? I mean, stat sheet, Dak has a great game. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, only 1 sack, 226 yards through the air, ran it 5 times for 20 yards. He did fumble the ball 3 times, lost it only 1 time, recovered it 2 times. But nonetheless, that's exactly what it is like a play here and there where you have a chance to like take that next step for your team or like put your foot on the gas or shove it down their throats. And those are the plays that are lacking. But overall stat sheet, Dak seems like he played a pretty solid game. I would argue that the Cowboys needed to try to run the ball more. I know they got down pretty early, but halftime it was only 13-7. Yeah. And the fact that their 2 running backs combined for 12 carries seems very, very low to me, especially with how kind of boom upside Tony Pollard has. And so I thought that was a little bit interesting. But yeah, I don't know what it is with Dak. I feel like this has been kind of my feeling on Dak for as long as Dak's been in the NFL is like there's years where he put up like 4,500 yards, almost 5,000 yards and had a shit ton of touchdowns. But then when it came down to it, he just slightly is lacking something. And I don't know if it's just like just fucking like that fired up passion or what it is, but like, yeah, there are just times where he seems very inaccurate, throws the ball behind guys. So I don't know what it is there because they have all the tools to be successful. This was a game that they had, at their grasp. They had a chance to win, but again, just quite couldn't get it done.
Yeah, the Cardinals played a pretty good defense too for the most part. I think that there were some tip passes where it was like behind CeeDee Lamb and in third down plays, things like that kind of makes a difference. But we're used to seeing the Cowboys defense also stepping up really well, and they didn't do that. Did you guys see that pass where AJ Green beats Diggs?
On the right side?
Yeah. Trayvon Diggs probably has the worst passer rating in double moves in the NFL because he literally jumps at every double move because he wants to intercept the ball.
Right.
And he got torched.
There's Green was like 4 steps ahead of him, and it was a perfect pass by Kyler Murray. So questions about that defense. I mean, we've seen really good results in the past couple of weeks against like Washington football team, and then I don't know if they play the Eagles. And Giants and teams in their divisions.
Teams that you can just beat up.
Yeah. Right.
But real quick, this is what happened. Okay, so what I was trying to get at earlier, I couldn't quantify it, but this is what I was trying to get at. Third quarter on, the Cowboys got the ball 5 times for the rest of the game. Okay, 6 plays punt, 5 plays punt, 10 plays touchdown, 3 plays fumble, 10 plays touchdown. So those drives with the 3 plays and fumble. Those were the ones that I was talking about where there were open people that could have it's those 3 things. Like I saw it 3 different times. Those 3 things could have changed everything. Instead, you end with 6-play punt, 5-play punt, 3-play fumble. That's some Vikings with Sean Mannion shit.
100%.
That's not allowed.
That fumble is a Dak Prescott fumble, right? When he ran in the middle.
And trying to reach for more yards. Yep. But yeah, like this is a playoff game. Like this could be a playoff matchup, and they just third quarter to end of fourth quarter, they did not play like they wanted to win this game. So, I mean, that was it. That's where I was trying to get at.
Yeah, Cowboys take on the Eagles next week in Philadelphia. They've obviously already clinched the playoff spot. They've won the division. They're the 4th seed right now, and I think barring, maybe they win and Tampa Bay loses, I don't know who holds the tiebreaker there, they're going to be set in the 4th seed. So it looks like there's really no maneuvering for them. The Cardinals take on the Seahawks next week. Cardinals are the 5th seed right now. They've clinched a playoff spot, but they haven't won their division. The Rams have actually already clinched their division, I believe. Have they? Have the Rams? No, the Rams have not. The Rams have not clinched the division, right? So they've clinched a playoff spot, but if the Rams lose and the Cardinals win next week, there is still a chance that the Cardinals win the division. So still something to play for there. Take it to the next game. The Saints were at home taking on the Carolina Panthers. Saints came into this game 6.5 points favorites, over under 38. They win the game 18-10 final. Taysom Hill was at the helm. Saints now are 8-8. The Panthers drop to 5-11. Really kind of not an exciting game. Saints defense played really, really well, but the Panthers offense very, very lackluster. And even the Saints offense, kind of lackluster. It felt like a game where you're like, who am I watching for? Like, I see Kamara, right? Obviously Kamara's fun to watch, but outside of Alvin Kamara, who are you watching in this game?
Yeah. I mean, Taysom Hill had a decent game. I don't think he had a bad game, because there were throws that were like deep to Callaway that he was kind of hitting as well in times where, like, on the Panthers side, like, there's no offense going on whatsoever. The first play, I think they scored a touchdown on the first drive, but outside of that, I mean, there's nothing. And the Saints find ways to at least kick a field goal, keep the drive going, and at the very end, I think third or fourth quarter, Kamara gets a touchdown. So, the good defense, and then like below average but not like terrible offense. That's what the Saints are, and they were able to pull through.
The Saints just maximized those few drives. So they were really bipolar with their drives. So like some drives, it would just end in a halt. Some drives, you would see, oh, there's Kamara. Oh, there he is running for 40 yards. So like, they would shut down Kamara for like 75% of the game. And then that 25% were those drives that ended with points. Yeah. So, they just maximized on a good defense with bad offense. So they knew that they didn't have to score every single drive. The Saints came into this game knowing that they needed, 18 points to win the game because how bad the Panthers offense is, and that's exactly what they did. They dealt with the torture from the Panthers defense as well. That's why they couldn't put up too many points, but they knew that was the case, and they just had to do just enough to win this game, and just enough was done.
Yeah, Cam Jordan had a monster game. 8 tackles, 6 solos, 3.5 sacks, 3 tackles for losses. Darnold was sacked 7 times, threw an interception, lost a fumble. So, as bad of an overall quarterback performance as you can see. We've obviously known this from Carolina. Darnold's not the answer. Their defense is still decent, but, again, at this point, you're really just looking forward, probably seeing what you have on your roster, who you can build around next year, etc. Because otherwise it's going to be really tough. They take on the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay next week. So for the Panthers, really nothing much to play for. Saints have a divisional game next week against the Falcons. But again, 2 teams at this stage who are, I guess the Saints technically, again, are not mathematically eliminated. They just have to win and hope for a lot of help. So they have more to play for than the Falcons, who are eliminated. Anything else in this game that you guys saw?
No.
Yeah, not a very exciting game. Next game on the board, a lot more exciting than, the implications here. The Seattle Seahawks were at home taking on the Detroit Lions. Lions came into this game at 2-12-1. Seahawks were 5-10. 7-point favorites at home for Seattle here, over under 42.5, and Seattle just puts on a thrashing, 51-29. More points than I think all three of us combined would have predicted this game would have. Over 42.5 gets smashed again. Huge game from Seattle from their offensive standpoint, and they come away victorious. This Seattle was my survivor pick, so as we stand 17-0, 1 week left to go.
Yeah, it was an impressive victory by Seattle Seahawks. The Lions just never kind of gave up either, so that was kind of cool to see. Like they're that
never
team.
Rolled over and died.
Yeah,
mad respect.
So they always they got into end zone. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a solid game, gets in the touchdown and red zone twice. So solid Amon-Ra St. Brown game. I see you nodding your head.
I had such a good team, such a good team.
The remorse.
But it happens. What are you do?
Yeah, but as far as the Seahawks goes, they ran the ball really efficiently, and the Lions just could not stop that running game. In 170 yards by Rashad Penny just kind of proves that. And just about everyone went off for the Seahawks, right? So solid game by the Seahawks. Lions, I don't know what you do with that. I guess better chances to get closer to the top 5 pick.
Yeah, they're second right now as we stand in terms of draft order.
Yeah.
Obviously, they have pieces to build around next year as well, right? Tim Boyle's not the answer. We know, unfortunately, Jared Goff's probably not the answer as well. Swift is a nice player. Amon-Ra St. Brown has really come on, and they had some hope for like Khalif Raymond, et cetera, all those guys. So you still have Hawkinson, who I think was hurt, but still pieces to build around next year. And again, Dan Campbell has this team, even though they were down 31-7 at half, continuing to fight, right? Continuing to score. They put up 22 points in the second half. They could have literally just rolled over and died at this point because they have nothing to play for, and that was not the case. So same can't be said about every football team in the NFL, so I still give the Lions respect for that. But they take on the Packers next week, so ending the season in a divisional game where the Packers have clinched the first round spot, so they might be resting a lot of their guys. So who knows? Maybe the Lions can come away victorious to end a really, really shitty season. And the Seahawks take on the Cardinals, another divisional game in Arizona. I don't know if the Cardinals will rest their starters, but the Seahawks, again, we talked about last week, they're not a team with the personnel, the coaching that's just going to roll over and die, even though they know they're not in the playoffs. They probably still have a lot of pride, so probably looking to come away victorious there. That takes us. You have something
real
else?
Quick, 2 things, one for each team. Russell Wilson now tied Peyton Manning for the most QB wins in a player's first 10 seasons since 1950, and this was like a really bad season.
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Technically, he's been playing better than Peyton Manning if QB wins are a legit stat. And then we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he actually surpassed Odell Beckham's rookie record for the longest. So he has 8 or more receptions in 5 straight games. That broke Odell Beckham's 4 straight for the longest streak among rookies. And then he also broke Calvin Johnson's of 5 straight, tied with non-rookie numbers, was 5 straight. 8 or more receptions in 5 straight games, tied with Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson for the longest streak in Lions history.
Wow.
So for the last 4 weeks, this guy's been wide receiver 1.
He was the offensive MVP of for the month of December.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is just something you want to jot down for your draft next year because, dude, all signs point towards greatness.
Yeah, and it seems like the Lions have actually found a number 1 receiver.
Yeah, if anything they got out of this season, that's what they got.
Yeah, build around Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, big game for the Seahawks. Wilson had a great game. Penny had a great game. DK Metcalf had 3 touchdowns. Lockett had a touchdown. So all the big names getting the job done. That takes us into Sunday Night Football, where the Minnesota Vikings were traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Packers win, and they clinch the number 1 spot. Vikings win, and their playoff hopes are still alive. Packers were favored by 7 points here at home. He covered that spread pretty easily. 37-10 final at home. Over 46.5 hits at 47 total points. Packers are now 13-3. They clinch a first-round bye in the NFC, the top spot. The Vikings are now mathematically officially eliminated from the playoffs. It was a Sean Mannion start, and it was, there's definitely, what's funny is last night for, being on TV, televised, nationally televised, for people that saw, and they're like, man, as a Vikings fan, how can you put yourself through this and watch this game? But I can't tell you the amount of times we've had a backup quarterback or some random dude that doesn't deserve to start, and we have to witness games like this, like the Josh Freemans, the Joe Webbs, the Chris, this is something that is so not new to us, where as any other football fan, you're like, yeah, in what world did the Vikings start a random quarterback like Sean Mannion this week in a game where they had to win to keep themselves alive in the playoffs? So it was very uninspiring football. Green Bay just completely dominated this game. Aaron Rodgers couldn't be stopped. Devontae Adams was getting press coverage singularly by a guy named Chris Boyd, who has no business even being an active cornerback on a roster. So
and the longest play of the day was by our center.
Yes.
That was awesome.
That was pretty
Shout out Garrett Bradbury. The funniest thing about watching last night's game was that, and then the fact that Chris Collinsworth said Garrett Bradbury is an outstanding center. When, if you look at PFF, for what it's worth, he's literally probably statistically the worst center in the league.
But can they run the ball like him?
He's got great hands. He's got better hands than a lot of defensive backs and receivers.
He looked like a runner. He ran
he was
a runner.
Bulldozing. Maybe we need to see Garrett Bradbury at fullback or tight end, because
instead of Ham.
He's too small to be a center, but he's clearly able to carry the ball and rumble his way down there. But that was fun to watch. Again, we had to really look for a very, very concrete, highlights of the game as a Viking fan, because there wasn't very many.
Dude, this game ended in the first quarter for me. As soon as we couldn't stop them. So basically, Green Bay started the game off a couple first drives with a punt, and then the end of the game with a punt. But in between was a lot of touchdowns. And, I didn't expect anything less. This is what you expect when you watch a Vikings game on primetime with, like, you're missing one of your most important players. All you have to do is sit there and listen to the announcers just raving Aaron Rodgers the whole time. And I'm just like, we just beat this guy like 3 weeks ago. He ain't all that. We can beat him. But you know what? This is how the cookie crumbles, and it's just time for a brand new team. Everything. I want Dalvin Cook gone. I'll take a Kirk Cousins less team. I want the coaching staff gone. I want the offensive coordinator gone. That's what I want gone, in that order. Actually, no, reverse order. Reverse that order. Dalvin's last for sure.
You're going against the Green Bay Packers, who haven't lost a game at Lambeau Field this year. Yeah. So it's already a tough matchup. But the first quarter was kind of promising at times. So
defense stepped up. Defense stepped up, but that wasn't going to last very long. Aaron Rodgers just needs so this is how we're playing this. All right, let's play like this then. Try this out.
This is always our problem, right? In pockets of space where offense does good, defense can't stop anybody. Pockets of space where defense stops it, our offense literally looks abysmal.
It's unreal.
We can never put together a complete performance, 60 minutes of football.
And then you have offense and defense together, the punt returner will drop the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
like a guy that never fumbles, like a Thielen or Cook will fumble. I'm like, what the hell? So, dude, you're right. I want everything gone. Dalvin Cook's interesting because you're right. As super talented as he is, running back shelf lives are not great. He's getting paid a really, really handsome amount, or he will be here shortly.
Trade him.
And so we need to get rid of and unload his roster or his salary cap. And then there's a lot of aging guys that, I've kind of just been looking into for our roster for the offseason. Harrison Smith's a guy who, I still would love to restructure with him and get him down to a lower number. He still has enough left in the tank that if he wanted to go play for a contender, I would be happy for him. You got guys like Adam Thielen. With the emergence of KJ Osborne, Thielen's like the fourth highest paid player on our team. So for a guy that's injury prone, north of 32. We have two receivers who now showcase that they can be ones and twos. Hey, we'd love to have you in Minnesota because you're a Minnesota native, and if you want to come back at a very team-friendly contract and be our third receiver,
I think you will,
and still be a stud like Larry Fitzgerald late in his career, retire in Minnesota. We'd love to have you. And then you have other guys, right? Daniil Hunter, I think, is like a $20 million hit, but he's our best defensive player. He's still young. He's still in his prime, but he can't stay healthy.
Yeah, he's missed the last 2 seasons.
There's so much you have to juggle with that, I've built a world where we could do all of that and still keep Kirk Cousins, and maybe he'll restructure a little, to get more money for us, because it's like, hey, Kirk, you've been in the league 13 years now. You put up the numbers. You've made a shit ton of money. Do you want to win? Because if you want to win, let's put together a team and a roster around you that we can win with. So,
dude, honestly, if we're fucking getting rid of everybody, then we need to just get rid of everybody, because I don't want anything lingering. I want fresh, complete fresh. Just who cares if we have 2 years of bad?
I could care a lot. I'm on board. I'm absolutely on board.
Right? Because if we're gonna keep Kirk, but then we're gonna lose everything around, then what's the point? Because Kirk needs good players to target the ball to. It's
like a Deontay Johnson or a Claypool.
Yes, dude, that would be fucking ideal.
We have better receivers than Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, we do. But check down wise, we don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are the things that everything needs to fall perfectly, and we've had those moments in the past, but they're never going to happen again.
So think about this offense, right? Heading into next season, if Kirk stays and restructures, we lose all these other guys, but we still have Darisaw, we have Ezra Cleveland, and we have Brian O'Neill. Those are foundations.
We still have Bradbury, but
yeah, Bradbury sucks. So I'm hoping we can replace a Bradbury and whatever other missing piece in the offensive line is, but we still have receivers. Dalvin Cook can go. We can get Alexander Madison and Nwangu, and they can be fine, right? We have Jefferson and Osborne. We have Irv Smith coming back. Tyler Conklin has been looking phenomenal.
Yeah. Mannion really likes Tyler Conklin.
So that offensive weapon core, if Kirk stays and restructures, still looks pretty similar, right? And we get better because we have more money and we can draft better linemen. But what we need to fix is the defense. Absolutely need to fix the defense because they're so fucking atrocious. But I'm totally on board with the complete makeover. This offseason is going to be really exciting and interesting because it's going to be a huge dynamic shift, I think, from the last 8 years of Mike Zimmer. So it'll be interesting to see.
Out of that list that you sent me, I think it was Keelan Moore, Byron
Leftwich, Eric Bieniemy,
Peterson
Doug
looks
Peterson.
like the best option there. For me, I don't know. Doug Peterson for the Eagles. He coached.
Yeah.
And won the Super Bowl. I mean, he could
give me better me.
Yeah,
Better me.
Eric Bieniemy probably, as the Chiefs offensive coordinator.
We would need a new quarterback to run that offense.
That's the thing.
Because-
That's the thing is I want to hire a quarterback, or I want to hire a coach and an offensive coordinator, and then let them decide. Like, hey, we can actually work with Kirk.
Yeah.
We'll just change shit up.
Yeah.
Or, hey, this isn't our guy. Let's go draft. And then we can just run that way.
Yeah, it's pretty predictable the types of quarterback you need for certain types of offenses, and
Yeah.
like Kirk works perfectly with West Coast offense, right? Like he does everything any coordinator would ever want from a quarterback. He can do it all, but those days are starting to be ticking. Like people are starting to use, the Herberts. People are drafting Herberts. Nobody's drafting the Cousins anymore. Nobody's like even if there was a Drew Brees, he would not get drafted as high as people are getting drafted now because the game is changing. And we had this small window from 2017 to now where that type of quarterback, like just pocket passers, build a wall, they'll get the ball delivered. That we had that window, but that window has come to an end. And now we can't. If we're gonna get a whole new regime, you got to get a whole new makeover because you can't make a fish climb a tree. You need a monkey to climb a tree. So if you want to have your offense climbing trees, we got to get some athletic quarterbacks to start climbing trees.
We got to get some monkeys.
We need to get some monkeys.
No, that's a great point. I'm on board. I'm just excited for change. That I think this is like one of those situations where like the silver lining is that no matter what happens, change is inevitable, right?
Yeah.
So and change is always exciting.
Well,
'cause it's not
you'd
now.
be surprised. Watch there be no change.
Again, we're gonna bring Zimmer back another year. Kirk Cousins, sign you through 2030 for $50
And we're
million.
still gonna do West Coast offense. Suck it.
Yeah, so the Vikings next week take on the Bears. Meaningless game for two teams. The Packers have already clinched everything. They take on the Lions next week. Meaningless game for the Packers. Maybe prideful game for the Lions. That's the last game that's already happened. We have Monday night. That's about 30 minutes away here. Shove it. Your Steelers at home hosting the Browns. Still technically not eliminated. And Big Ben's arguably maybe last game as a Steeler at home.
Yeah. It looks like all signs. This is what he said. He said all signs are pointing that way, and especially if we don't make the playoffs, I don't see any reason for Big Ben to stick around anymore. But it's been a good run.
If you're still looking for a quarterback,
Kirk Cousins
next week, no,
Steelers.
You can start Big Ben. I'm pretty sure he's gonna want to go out with a bang. So whether it's home or away, like he's probably gonna just throw his ass off.
Yeah. I was literally thinking along those lines because his last home game, I was looking at Big Ben props.
Yeah.
Big Ben anytime touchdown, like if he rushes one in or quarterback sneaks one in, is like plus like 3,000. And I'm like,
Damn.
why not?
Yeah, why not?
Last game at home of his career.
Yeah.
Nothing is off limits.
Yeah.
To sprinkle something on, who knows? So I'm looking at a lot of Big Ben props tonight just to see that he has that added motivation at home. So we'll see. I mean, should be a good game. Again, the Steelers are not technically mathematically eliminated yet. The Browns are already eliminated. So Steelers do have a little bit more to play for there. That's the games. Let's kick it real quick into studs and duds of the week. I'll kick us off. My stud is probably the overall stud of all fantasy football this week. Jamar Chase. Unreal performance by a receiver, 11 catches, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, some touchdowns that should not have been touchdowns. He did it like in every way possible. Mossed a guy, took a screen for a touchdown, caught one over the middle and ran it. Like there is nothing that guy can't do. Yep. The only thing he needs to work on is just consistency with catching the football. And if he limits his drops, the sky is the limit for this guy. He is my stud, 50.1 fantasy.
He literally reminds me of Antonio Brown.
Dude,
it's like we lose one Antonio Brown, we have gained another.
Reincarnation.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go next.
Hold on, let me give you my dud real quick. My dud is George Kittle. George Kittle, 2 weeks in a row, man. Playoff fantasy football is on the line. I know your team won and you got the job done, blocking and doing all the other useless shit that doesn't help fantasy football players. But 1 catch for 29 yards and 1 carry for 6 yards to amount to a total of 4 fantasy points in a half-point PPR. I needed more points. George Kittle, you're my dud.
All right. Speaking of studs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've talked about him earlier, but he's looking like the most promising receiver out of all the new receivers. Well, I mean, there's always Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
But, we'd be surprised.
Under the radar, guys,
We'd be
for
surprised.
sure.
It looks like, reliability, targets-wise. Amon-Ra actually outperforms Chase. He just doesn't have the splash ability Chase does. But if you had both those on one team, oh, my God, that'd be so great. But anyways, good job with your Studley duties, 31.4. And then Dudley duties, Dawson Knox. Bro, what are you doing, dude? Every time he scores a touchdown, he gets called back. Every single time he scores that's 3 touchdowns in a row. All 3 of them have been called back, and it's just I don't know what to say. Just dud.
He had no points?
He had 0 points.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
Goose egg.
Dud. All right, so my stud for this week is Rashad Penny. Man, this guy, it seems like when I had him on my team, he wasn't doing so well. As soon as I got rid of him, started performing phenomenally. And he had 31.5 points last week with 2 touchdowns. Just an amazing performance. If you started him, you probably were very happy.
You probably won. There's probably a good chance you won.
Yeah. My dud is going to be a guy who was a stud last week, who's been pretty well last couple of weeks, but this game with Miami and the Titans, Jalen Waddle just did not get it going. 6.2 points, 3 receptions on 7 targets, only 47 yards. So, just not a game that you're used to, given that Miami was force-feeding him last week. You're my dud for this week, Jalen Waddle.
And they were losing all game, and they lost the game 34-3. So you're like, why did the receiver not get more catches?
Tua.
Weird.
Why not?
Weird. That's it. That's studs and duds. I want to wrap this episode up with just kind of a quick little playoff picture. I know it's week 17 is over, so we only have 1 week of football left. I'm still in the fantasy football finals for this stupid-ass 2-week league, so that'll be interesting. But from a NFL playoff perspective, let's start with the AFC here. We talked about it earlier. The Tennessee Titans tied with the Chiefs, but have the tiebreaker based on head-to-head win percentage right now. They're 11-5. They are the first round bye currently, and they get the Texans next week. So a very, very clear path for the Titans to get 1 week bye, let Derrick Henry get an extra week of rest, and then if Derrick Henry is back for the playoffs, all of a sudden the Titans are rolling. So I think that's going to be a really interesting spot for them, and they're going to really need that to get that extra week break, get everybody healthy, including possibly seeing Derrick Henry in the playoffs.
Yeah, it looks like all signs are pointing that way because of the matchup. But if they lose, then the Cincinnati Bengals are up there, and they could potentially get the number 1 pick if they beat. I forget who they're playing next week. Maybe the Browns.
Bengals.
Bengals and Browns, maybe.
Yeah, you might be right. The Browns.
Yeah. So if the Bengals win, they get the number 1 spot, which I'm sure that they can beat the Browns. But whether or not Titans will lose to the Texans, that is.
Well, the Bengals are still third, right? So the Bengals still need the Chiefs as well, who's second right now. They're tied with the Titans at 11-5.
Although they may hold. Oh yeah, so Chiefs have to lose as well.
Exactly. Yes, so before the Bengals, the Chiefs next week. Well, if they win, they take on the Broncos. So Chiefs and Titans both have winnable games. If one team falters and the other team takes advantage, then they'll solidify that. But if both teams lose, then you have the Bengals, the Bills, the Patriots, all at 10-6 there, jumping at that possibility for a first-round bye. So nothing is set in stone in terms of a first-round bye in the AFC. Like I mentioned, the Chiefs are the 2nd seed. Bengals currently the 3rd seed and have won their division. Buffalo here is in the 4th seed. The first wildcard team is the Patriots currently. All of that's already clinched in terms of playoffs. It's just going to be seeding-wise. It's going to be different. 6th seed and 7th seed. The Colts are 9-7 right now, and they hold the tiebreaker over the Chargers in Vegas, who are both 9-7. Chargers hold the tiebreaker over Vegas right now based on head-to-head win percentage, but those 2 teams play each other this week. So win and in for Chargers and Vegas. Colts, if they lose, then the Chargers and Vegas, I take that back. So if the Colts lose, what actually needed to happen for both Chargers and Raiders to make it is they tie. So if one team beats the other, I believe the Colts still get in, but if the Chargers and Raiders tie, then they will mathematically have one less loss than the Colts, and they will both make it. So could be a really, really weird scenario. I don't expect it to go down that way because I expect the Colts to beat the Jaguars. And then, Pittsburgh technically not mathematically eliminated, and Baltimore technically not mathematically eliminated, but I think both teams would need an incredible amount of help to get into that last spot. So it's going to be tough for them. Over to the NFC, we have the Packers. We just talked about it. They beat the Vikings. They've clinched the number 1 spot, so they're probably going to let Rodgers' toe heal and rest. They're going to rest probably a majority of their guys. You have the number 2 seed there with the Rams right now at 12-4. They have the win, the head-to-head tiebreaker win percentage over the Buccaneers, who are also 12-4 in the 3rd seed. And then you have Dallas Cowboys, who are the 4th seed right now. They've already clinched their division, and barring some changes here to the standings, they are going to be the 4th seed. And then you have the Cardinals at the 5th seed here at 11-5. They still haven't actually have a chance to win the division if the Rams lose and the Cardinals win. I believe the Cardinals have that tiebreaker. And then you have the 49ers at the 6th seed who still have not clinched a spot, so they are still playing for the playoffs. You mentioned the Eagles, which is weird. The 49ers are the 6th seed with no playoff spot. Eagles at the 7th seed have already clinched the playoff spot. So 49ers still need to win. And then the only other team is technically still alive is the Saints. The Saints are still alive, but they're going to need a ton of help at the 8th seed. What are you guys seeing? Is there any way that this doesn't really play out the way it's already sitting on paper? Or is there a world where the Colts somehow lose to the Jaguars?
I don't think so.
That seems impossible. Like, I mean, in a world of possibilities, that seems very impossible.
I mean, there's a higher chance of the Eagles losing this week and then the 49ers taking their spot. The Saints taking their spot.
Yeah, it's all pointing towards exactly what it set out to be. I mean, maybe the Raiders. I would say maybe the Raiders find a way to get in. But other than that, like the Ravens and Steelers, I don't think it's going to be possible.
Gun to your head, Chargers, Raiders this week. Who wins?
I mean, I would say Chargers.
Who's home? I'll just pick the home
Chargers
team.
that are home.
I'll take the home team.
Yeah.
God, but dude, Jacob's going to run for like 180 yards.
Yeah. I mean, I God, as somebody that means nothing to. I mean, there is a chance, but the Chargers did do a good job of stopping the run this week. So who knows? Maybe they've figured something out. But the Raiders, it's so hard to put any stock in the Raiders.
Right.
Because you never know what you're going to get. At least I see a blueprint for the Chargers, offensively heavy, defensively deficient, right? But the Raiders are just like a coin toss. 1 week they're amazing. 1 week they're like playing like the Dolphins or the Texans or some shit. So
there's some good news.
Yeah.
So the Vikings might get the 10th draft pick position if we lose this week.
Yeah.
And the Broncos and the Falcons win.
That would be amazing.
We are officially the 10th.
Wait, is there a chance? Hold on. Is there a chance if we lose and we're 7-10, and then you have the Jets, the Giants, and football team all at 6-10?
Jets can't be 6-10. They're 4.
Oh no, because they're getting it from Seattle. So Seattle. Seattle and Chicago. So not Jets and Giants because the picks are from Seattle and Chicago. They're both 6-10. The football team is also 6-10. So I don't know how that tiebreaker holds out, but is there a chance the Vikings jump up to the 7th pick if they lose and all those teams win?
I don't know because we beat the Bears already.
But we play them next week.
Oh yeah, let's go Fields.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of draft order shake out there. Jags lose and they got the number 1 spot. They win and Detroit loses and Detroit gets the number 1 pick. So a lot of jockeying there for draft position, and that's going to be a big theme of the offseason episodes and everything like that. That's the episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're the only playbook. We have another episode that we're probably going to record on Thursday, and the next week is going to be one of our most exciting episodes that we've ever put out. More information on that in our Thursday episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy Monday Night Football. Shove it. Enjoy Big Ben's farewell tour at home. We're the only playbook. We'll see you next time.